hard things, the places where we are prone to disagreement, say politics and religion, well, as it turns out, not only does Wikipedia's model work there, it actually works really well. Because in our normal lives, these contentious conversations tend to erupt over disagreement about what the truth actually is. But the people who write these articles, they're not focused on the truth. They're focused on something else, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years of working with these brilliant folks, I've come to believe that they are onto something, that perhaps for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth might not be the right place to start. In fact, our reverence for the truth might be a distraction that's getting in the way of finding common ground and getting things done. Now, that is not to say that the truth doesn't exist.
Well, you heard that from the, what, was she the president or the CEO of...
She is the CEO of NPR, but she was the CEO of Wikipedia at the time of this, which is the first video that I have freaking pulled up right here.
Yeah.
If you thought that was bad.
Guys, just focus on this. The truth doesn't matter. The truth is not the best place to start. Guys, if we cannot base our worldview off of truth, then what's the point of basing our worldview off of anything? I mean, well, this is how dictatorships and communism and all this evil stuff spreads. Evil spreads through lies and disinformation. The truth is not what's important. The narrative is.
Yep.
I mean, NPR, this is NPR, publicly funded radio. Our taxpayers, our tax dollars go to fund NPR. And guess what? That woman, the woman who's the CEO, basically goes, no, it's okay to lie to people.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it doesn't get in the way of the narrative. The truth doesn't matter. The narrative does.
Exactly. Now, she's saying that Wikipedia's, when she was there, that the system worked and that, the people who did it are just people who do it for free, which is not true. They have moderators that keep track. Like anybody back when we were kids in high school, I remember watching guys in my class, in one of my computer classes, go to Wikipedia, and they would just start changing up what everything said on like some history lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hilarious, because here they are doing something about Alexander the Great, and they're saying, just a bunch of random crap about him. And it was free. And then they started moderating it, and like these people, I'm pretty sure some of them are paid, and like they determine what's true. Like if you are the person who has an article about you, like I said, I remember Steven Crowder did a whole video about this that you can watch, where he tried to go and make changes to like his bio, and they wouldn't let him. And he goes, "But I'm me. I know more about me than somebody on Wikipedia does." Mm-hmm. And they wouldn't let him make any changes or corrections.
And then they had doctors try to change things that were wrong inside certain bios and information on certain medical drugs. And he had doctors go in and go, no, this is wrong. And they'd change it. And then they'd be like, you're not qualified enough to make this change. And he'd be like, I'm a medical doctor. I am the most qualified person to make this change. Yep. And then you have some basement dweller on Wikipedia going, no, you're not.
Yeah. But even the co-founder of Wikipedia says that it's bad now. That's the first video I have pulled up right here after this.
Yeah.
We spoke with one of Wikipedia's co-founders, Larry Sanger, who says the site has lost its neutral point of view and become biased. For example, he points out to the site's article on former President Obama. It completely leaves out the Benghazi scandal, where he repeatedly refused to beef up security before the attack on the diplomatic compound in Libya. Sanger tells us why he thinks Wikipedia is a lost cause.
Co-founder of Wikipedia, Larry Sanger, says the online encyclopedia he helped create is more one-sided than ever. In a recent article on his webpage, he says there is a crucial difference between propaganda and information that supports individual deliberation. The difference is neutrality. He says a neutral viewpoint does not exclude points of view by deciding which are correct. It presents various viewpoints and allows people to decide for themselves what to believe. Sanger says the neutrality that is supposed to be one of the 5 pillars of Wikipedia does not exist. He says Wikipedia editors systematically purge conservative sources, and that Fox News, the New York Post, Newsmax, and many others are banned. Sanger lists 4 politically controversial topics and shows how each one of them is biased towards the Democrats' viewpoints in Wikipedia's articles. He says democracy requires that people have access to information so they can make up their own mind. But Wikipedia has turned into another deeply biased institution, and this gives enormous power to people who can control the information. The Wikipedia Foundation did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
Well, there you go, guys. I mean, again, no one ever really trusted Wikipedia as a source of information, but they are an aggregator of information. So if you wanted to get a good source, you could go to Wikipedia, use the source that they used for your, that's what I did in high school and college. Like, I'd go to Wikipedia, source whatever articles that Wikipedia would source, and that's how I would write my essays and stuff. So there you go. I mean, it still is an information aggregator, and guess what? Everything you read about on Wikipedia is going to have a left-wing bias. Again, Barack Obama, as I said, they wrote in there, they took out anything bad about Benghazi. There's no bad PR. There's do you think they're going to have Obama bombing that Bar Abalaki or whatever in Yemen? Barack Obama bombed an American teenager in Yemen.
Mm-hmm.
His dad was a terrorist, not him. I mean, you can say that if you're being fair, you could be like, well, he was going to grow up to become a terrorist because his dad was a terrorist, and he was obviously in Yemen. But he bombed him at a cafe eating dinner in Yemen, a country we were not at war with, and we've never been at war with.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy, folks. Like, that's not in his bio. They're not going. Again, Barack Obama is the saint. I mean, you lost a friend over this exact argument conversation. You remember you were arguing with one of our fraternity brothers, and he was like, Trump was responsible for that Navy SEAL's death or whatever, and and then Trump was saying, I'm not responsible. The guy signed up and did the job. It's like.
Yeah, he said he said
it's an abject abdication of duty.
It's abdication duty. And I go, oh, so then you must feel the same way about Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton when the Benghazi scandal happened. Blocked.
Yep.
Immediately blocked after
Again, whenever liberals are called out on their BS, they don't own up to it. They just move on. Because, again, you can't challenge Obama, the great saint of Democrats, the god of America.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, guys, Barack Obama is the left's messiah. I mean, that's why he's still so relevant in media today. It's like, we got to get an opinion from Obama. Now, again, thank God, like his wife, with her podcast, it's not doing well.
Yeah.
They're not actually as popular as they were. Again,
they're AstroTurf.
We were AstroTurf. We were artificially inflated to love these people. Again, it's like Beto O'Rourke literally appeared out of nowhere. It's like everyone, I literally want to ask everyone who was voting for Beto against Ted Cruz. I'm like,
are you from Texas?
No, not even from that. It's like, I have a question. Where was Beto 2 years ago? What policies has Beto had, or what has he done to make you love him so much? Again, the left doesn't realize how absolutely astroturfed their candidates and their people that they hold up are.
Yeah.
It's like, what has he done?
Yeah.
Kennedy was a war hero.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time. It's like, Beto O'Rourke's rise to fame is scary because he was on late night shows with Jay Leno and all these other people in New York and California for an election in Texas. Why on earth is a guy running for senator in Texas, going on shows in California and New York to raise his publicity?
We're getting off topic, but here's the point. Remember the Google search controversy we talked about?
Yep.
That 70% of Google searches for Trump are negative, as we're only, and not just Trump, anything conservative related is negative towards conservatives. 70% is negative, and 30% is positive.
This is basically proved, like this hearing right here, this NPR hearing has basically proved what the conservatives have been saying all along, is that the media is completely left-wing biased towards the Democrats. And I've got the receipts to prove it. Like, here is Jim Jordan calling out that lady that we just saw at the start of the video.
So we'll get onto this because, like I said, this is the crux of the video. We're already going off on tangents because we're getting hot-headed about it. But, I mean, again, it just goes to show you that, I mean, the conservatives have been fighting an uphill battle forever. The problem, the beauty of it now is we can just see it for what it is now because the internet, well, I guess it does lie, but, I mean, technically it's easier to expose lies with the internet.
It's easier to expose the truth when you can record yourself and record things versus the media control of it.
Yep.
Anyway, here's the first one, Jim Jordan.
Chair, Ms. Maher, who is Uri Berliner?
Mr. Berliner is a former senior editor.
That's all?
former senior business editor for NPR.
How long do you work at NPR?
I believe he was there just over 25 years.
25 years? Award-winning journalist? Did he win any awards?
Our time did not
Peabody
overlap.
Award? That's pretty important, isn't it?
That is
So
absolutely.
pretty distinguished journalist, right?
Certainly.
And he wrote a long story about what you do at NPR. Is NPR biased?
Congressman, I have never seen any instance of political bias determining editorial decisions. No.
Well, Mr. Berliner, in his story last year, wrote, in the D.C. area, editorial positions at NPR, he said he found 87 registered Democrats, 0 Republicans. Is that accurate?
We do not track the numbers or the voter registration, but I
Bet you
find that
don't.
The
concerning.
award-winning journalist who worked 25 years at NPR, Mr. Berliner, was he lying when he wrote that?
I am not presuming such. I just we don't track that information about our journalists.
87 to 0, and you're not biased.
I think that is concerning if those numbers are accurate.
It's concern. I mean, it wasn't 44-43. It wasn't 60-27. It wasn't 70-17. It wasn't even 80-7. It was 87 Democrats, 0 Republicans, and you say NPR is not biased. How about the big stories over the last few years? According to Mr. Berliner, again, he wrote on the Trump-Russia story, he wrote, at NPR, we hitched our wagon to Trump's most visible antagonist, Representative Adam Schiff. He said they interviewed him 25 times. Is that accurate?
I was not there at the time, but those numbers sound accurate. Yes.
Those sound accurate. But then he said when the Mueller report came out and Robert Mueller said he found no evidence of collusion, he said Russiagate faded from our programming. Is that accurate?
Again, I was not there at the time. I couldn't say.
You couldn't say?
I was not at NPR at the
You
time.
didn't prepare for that? You knew we were going to ask you about this guy, didn't you? It's come up like 6,000 times already in the hearing.
I just couldn't say whether it faded from our coverage, sir.
How about this story? October 2020, the New York Post had the Hunter Biden laptop story, and one of those editors, I guess one of those 87 Democrat editors, said this: we don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories. We don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' times on stories that are just pure distractions. Was that a pure distraction story?
Our current editorial leadership believes that that was a mistake.
So again, guys, it's what how many times have I told you this on the show? It's not about what, like, the stuff you see is what they're doing to try to shape the narrative. The stuff the news posts, the stuff the editors put out. Mm-hmm. What is the thousands upon millions of articles, headlines, and news that we don't see? The stuff they go, again, it's like the CNN and MSNBC sweeping the Epstein stuff under the rug. It's like, oh, this isn't interesting. The public won't care about this. Mm-hmm. What they don't post, like this, like them being like, oh, that Hunter Biden's a non-story. Yeah. Like, again, you have corrupt people inside these organizations shaping the world based on the news they produce or they put out.
Yeah.
Guys, that should scare you. That's terrifying. And again, how many of our friends just brainlessly watch NPR and go, it is the most unbiased? It's like the BBC. It's like they use the NPR, same as BBC. It's like, it's publicly broadcasted. It's biased because, you know, the government funds it. It's nonpartisan. Like,
And
get wrecked.
yeah.
You're lying.
And what's going on with NPR and some of these other networks right now is happening with the BBC. The conservatives in Britain or London or the UK are like, the BBC is completely biased to the left wing, and and this is a taxpayer funded website or a news program, so we need to frickin' get this fixed. Mm-hmm. So, but you pleb, you don't get to make those decisions. Us elites at the top get to make that decision.
Yep. Sorry, keep going.
As do I.
Yeah, the whole country knows that was a mistake. Definitely impacted the election, or I think it certainly impacted the election. How about the COVID origin story? That's a pretty big story too, right? Mr. Berliner said, we became fervent members of the team natural origin, even declaring that the lab leak was debunked by scientists. Turns out, though, the lab leak is what most people think actually caused the COVID virus.
Sorry, is there a question there?
There is. You guys were 0 for 3. On the three of the biggest stories in the last 5 years, you guys were 0 for 3, and yet you maintain that NPR is not biased?
Congressman, I do not believe we are politically biased. No, we are a nonpartisan organization.
Nonpartisan organization. What's happened to your listeners over the last
foot.
5 years? Went up, down, or stayed the same?
It has gone up and down and is now going back up.
Well, I thought 5 years ago it was at 60 million. And you said in your opening statement, I think 43 million.
That's correct.
So 43 million now, and it was at 60 million 5 years ago. I can do some math. That looks like it went down.
And is now going back up.
It's now going back up?
Yes, it is.
How much has it went back up?
It's gone up a couple of millions over the past year.
So you went from 60 million to 41 million. Now you're back up to 43 million.
In a year's time, I'm very proud of that growth, sir.
Okay, you're proud of that growth. Okay. But over 5 years, it's went down 18 million.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. Should taxpayers subsidize NPR?
I believe that taxpayers subsidize local stations, sir. That is the vast majority of what
I thought you said you got 11 million from Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which is taxpayer funded directly to you, right?
That is to support the public.
And then local stations get it from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, right? They get taxpayer
100 million that goes to local
100 million goes to local stations, and then those local stations buy back programming and content from you. So that money goes to the local stations, comes back to you, gets routed to the local stations, all taxpayer money.
Those fees are actually based on private donations rather than on federal funding.
Well, we all know money's fungible, so some of it gets put in there.
Certainly, we could agree that money is fungible.
What? More money for less listeners. You fired the guy who pointed all this out, who said that you were so biased to the left that you lost listeners, which is exactly happening, and you're here maintaining that, you need to continue to get taxpayer money.
I did not fire Mr. Berliner, sir.
Okay, the guy that left after all that. Understand. Are you fundraising off today's hearing?
Sir, I believe that there was a message that went out earlier today letting people know we were coming in. Yes.
Yeah, and at the bottom of the message it said, donate now, right?
I don't recall the exact
I can
language.
show it to you. Right there it is. Donate now. I mean, I'm not against fundraising. We all do it. I get it. But I assume this fundraising thing is probably going to all the left listeners who are subsidized content by the taxpayers, and that's
The gentleman's time is
That's
expired.
the rub. I yield back.
I now recognize Miss Randall.
Dear Lord. I mean,
Apologize.
again, our taxpayer dollars are funding this, again, indoctrination programs is what this is. I mean, if you're a Democrat and you're fine with it, that's fine. But, again, all you have to do is imagine, what if it was all people on the right? What if it was the opposite was true?
Imagine if Fox News was getting your taxpayer dollars being shipped to them on a regular basis. Like, hey, this is what the people voted for.
I mean, again, and the argument from the left will be, well, this is a recent thing. It's not. How recent? And how can you prove that? Show me the hard data.
Mm-hmm.
Show me the number of registered Republicans NPR hired in the past 20 years. Then we can talk whether or not this is a recent event. Yeah. And again, don't be that person that is generous to your side and is not generous to the other side. If you're going to live on the line, you're going to say neither side gets any grace from me. Fine, apply it to your side too, though. But if you're going to apply the most generous amount of grace to your side, make sure you apply it to the other side too.
Yep.
That's all I'm going to say.
This next one is Senator, I forget what his name is, Senator Representative Gill. And his takedown, I think, is probably even better than Jordan's.
Oh, yeah.
So I just love Senator
That's
Jordan.
the one. Gill's the one I saw. I didn't see Jordan's takedown.
No, Jordan's is great, too.
Getting over colds. I'm losing my voice here. Ms. Maher, I want to start with you. Just generally, would you say you generally agree or disagree with the following statement? The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles?
I would not say I agree with that.
That's good to hear. It's interesting because a lot of your thinking, as expressed by your public statements, is deeply infused with economic and cultural Marxism. Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You tweeted that in reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
I apologize, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
I've no doubt that your tweet there is correct, but I don't recall that.
Okay. Do you believe that white people inherently feel superior to other races?
I do not.
You don't? You tweeted something to that effect. You said, I grew up feeling superior. How white of me? Why did you tweet that?
I gotta see, the internet can't hide people's stupid decision making anymore. And these Democrats are literally shooting themselves in the foot with all their anti-Trump, anti-white, whatever propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, they don't realize how insane they look. It's like, if you could take back all the tweets and stuff you made as a high school kid, would you do it? It's like, sure you would. But I mean, the internet's forever, and especially with these people who are in positions of power like her. I mean, CEO and president of Wikipedia, now NPR.
Exactly. But this is proving what we've always known, is that some of the people that are at the tops of these corporations are activists.
Yeah.
Disguised as people who are like, we're unbiased. We are so unbiased. We're just here doing journalism for the people. And just like, yeah, you are. Sure you are.
Her TED Talk a year ago, I mean, the way we opened this video, the truth doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Holy Lord. What kind of cult are you in? It's like, people accuse people who are Christians of being in a cult. It's like the God charged us to pursue what is good, righteous, and true. What is good, beautiful, and true. That's what we are told to pursue as Christians. If the truth, it's one of the if religion's a lie and Christianity's a lie, why does it tell us to pursue the truth?
Mm-hmm. Yep. We'll get back to this because this is great. He just keeps this is all this is. It's a freaking clown show for this lady.
I think I was probably reflecting on what it was to grow up in an environment where I had lots of advantages.
It sounds like you're saying that white people feel superior.
I don't believe that anybody feels that way, sir. I was just reflecting on my own experiences.
Do you think that white people should pay reparations?
I've never said that, sir.
Yes, you did. You said it in January 2020.
Yes, you did.
Tweeted, yes, the North. Yes, all of us. Yes, America. Yes, our original collective sin and unpaid debt. Yes, reparations. Yes, on this day.
I don't believe that was a reference to fiscal reparations, sir.
What kind of reparations was it a reference to?
I think it was just a reference to the idea that we all owe much to the people who came before us.
That's
He's
a
having a
bizarre way to
blast.
frame what you tweeted. Okay, how much reparations have you personally paid?
Sir, I don't believe that I've ever paid reparations.
Okay, just for everybody else.
I'm not asking anyone
Seems
to
to
pay
be what you're
reparations, sir.
suggesting. Do you believe that looting is morally wrong?
I believe that looting is illegal, and I refer to it as counterproductive. I think it should be prosecuted.
Do you believe it's morally
law.
wrong, though?
Of course.
Of course. Then why did you refer to it as counterproductive? It's a very different way to describe it.
It is both morally wrong and counterproductive, as well as being
You
illegal.
tweeted, it's hard to be mad about protests in reference to the BLM protests, not prioritizing the private property of a system of oppression. You didn't condemn the looting. You said that it was counterproductive.
Okay.
NPR.
I'll just stop this really quick because I have to say something. Like, so either she's an activist and she believes everything she's actually saying and she's lying right now, or two,
She's an overly emotional woman.
I was gonna say, or two, she doesn't actually believe all that stuff she tweeted. She just likes to look good for everybody on Twitter.
No, I mean, I think it's a combination of all of it. She's an overly emotional lady in charge of stuff she shouldn't be in charge of. And, again, running these companies into the ground. I mean, look, is she right? Is getting 3 million subscribers back to NPR a big deal? Sure, but not after you lost 62,000.
No, 62.
They had 62
They had
million.
62 million, so they lost
20 million, and now they're back up to 3 million. It's like, oh, good job, lady. You're saving the company.
Mm-hmm.
Again, NPR shouldn't be a company. Period. Like, I mean, if you're subsidized by the government, you're not really a sustainable
and then
company.
As we found out from Doge and Elon Musk, is how many of those are probably actually real people versus a bunch of government subscriptions,
Yeah,
somewhere.
the government subscribing, using more taxpayer dollars to keep NPR alive.
Mm-hmm. But
Keep
we'll get
CNN alive.
let's get back to this because I got a couple other things I need to show.
Okay.
Also promoted a book called In Defense of Looting. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars?
I'm unfamiliar with that book, sir, and I don't believe that was at my
You
time at
tweeted that
NPR.
you read that book, but
I don't believe that I did read that book, sir.
do you think that a few years ago NPR educated America about, quote, the whole community of genderqueer dinosaur enthusiasts? Do you think that that's an appropriate use of tax dollars?
I was not at NPR at the time, sir.
That's not the question, though. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of our tax dollars?
I think our tax dollars that we use are to be able to provide a wide range of.
I'll take that as a yes. You do believe that that's appropriate. Your health advisor at NPR also stated in an interview that, quote, fear of fatness is more harmful than actual fat. Would you like to explain how fear of fatness is more harmful than actual fat? That's an editorial at NPR.
I am not familiar with the editorial, and I don't believe that was published during my time here.
It's called Diet Culture is Everywhere. Here's how to fight it. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars?
I think any reporting on health is an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars, yes.
And you think that editorializing that fat is not unhealthy is appropriate?
I don't know what that article is, sir, and I'm not familiar with it, so
This
I couldn't
is
say.
fake news. Do you think that basic accommodations like doorways or seatbelts represent, quote, latent fat phobia?
I don't have an opinion.
It's also
sir.
from NPR. Do you think civility is racist?
No, sir.
No. Your outlet ran an article entitled, quote, when civility is used as a cudgel against people of color. That was on All Things Considered. Would you like to explain?
I'm not on the editorial side, sir. I'm not familiar with that story.
You talk about how NPR is news. This is editorialization, and I'll read it. For many people of color in the United States, civility isn't so much social lubricant as it is a vehicle for containing them, preventing social mobility, and preserving the status quo. This is garbage. I'll spend all of my time doing everything I can to ensure you guys never get another dollar of taxpayer funding. This is complete garbage. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr.
Boom. What a manimal, dude. Way to go.
Yep. Which brings me up to the next couple things that I have here. This was done by a couple of professors. I think I'll read it as I go through here, but this is the liberal media. It's no myth, and this was June 14th, 2004. Good Lord, yeah, it's just a lot of stuff. Anyway, liberal media is no myth by Robert J. Barrow. Many people think the mainstream media have a liberal bias. Media spokesmen, however, usually deny such claims. So who is right? Is there a left-wing bias, or has the right wing conspired not only to influence the media, but also to create a false image of unfairness? Some scientific evidence is available in the continuing study, A Measure of Media Bias, by Tim, I'm going to get this, Gorsakalos, of the University of California at Los Angeles, and Jeff Milio, the University of Chicago, presented last March at Stanford University's workshop on the media and economic performance. The researchers set up an objective to measure bias in U.S. television networks, newspapers, and magazines. The main find is that liberal inclinations is pronounced. Although Fox News emerges as conservative, it's not nearly as far right as other outlets are to the left. Grokolos and Milo, or Melio, I don't know how to say the names.
Yeah.
With the well-known ratings of voter records of the U.S. senators and representatives by Americans for Democratic Action, so the ADA, is self-described liberal lobbyist group. The researchers used data in 1990 and adjusted the ADA scores to make comparable over time and across two chambers on a scale of 0 to 100, with 100 being the most liberal. The median member of the U.S. House had an ADA score of 39. Thus, the 39 was a reasonable measure for a centrist positions. Among well-known senators, Bill Frist, a Republican Tennessee, a highly conservative score of 4. And whereas Edward M. McKennedy, Democrat at Massachusetts, had a strikingly liberal score of 80.
Whoa.
Next is step measured. The tendency of the Senate House members in their speeches to cite 200 prominent think tanks. The citations considered those who referred favorably view or fact presented by a think tank. Not counted were negative citations or those purely descriptive of the think tank's actions. As an example, the Heritage Foundation was cited by legislators who had an average ADA rating of 6. That is very conservative. Also highly conservative were the Family Research Council, rating of 6, the National Right Children's Defense Fund, the National Right, I skipped the line, of Life Committee, which got a 7. Left-wing think tanks included Center on Budget of Policies and Priorities, 80%. So that would be more Democratic. The higher the number, the more Democratic it is, and the lower the number, the more conservative it is. The Children's Defense Fund, 77. Economic Policy, 72. Then, surprisingly, the American Civil Liberties Union was a centrist at 35. The outcome was driven by the ACLU's opposition to the campaign finance reform, which, as we know now, like later on, that some of these other places have become way more extreme, like in their views now. The last step was to measure the tendency of variations in media outlets to cite the same 200 think tanks. The researchers considered news stories, not editorials, letters, and of the editors, and so on. The periods covered a range of from 1990 to 2003. Again, the citations of those referred favorably views or facts provided by the think tank. Researchers used this information to calculate right versus left-wing indicators for each media outlet, effectively the ADA rating. The assumption is that the media outlets refer favorably to conservative think tanks are reasonably characterized as conservative, whereas those refer positively to liberal think tanks are plausibly labeled as liberal. The final product in the preliminary provided by the authors was a list of computed ADA ratings from media outlets. On the conservative end, Fox News special report came out with a rating of 27. And that is 12 points more conservative than the 39, the median number of the House. The only other center-right outlet was the Washington Times that scored 34. On the liberal end, Newsweek was an astonished rating of 72. That is 33 points more liberal than the House median. So that means the House of Representatives was less liberal than
The media.
the media was. So on the other high-end outlets, the New York Times, Times Magazines, and CBS, USA Today, and NBC Nightly News scored 62, 64, 25 points higher than the U.S. median. For viewers seeking true and fair balance, reporting the best outlets were ABC Good Morning America and NewsHour with Jim Leder. The ADA scores for the programs were 39 and 41, respectively. Places moderately left center were CNN with Aaron Brown, 49, The Washington Post, 53, NPR's, which that's not the case anymore as we know now, 55, and ABC's World News, 55. Because the problem of data collection was the list of the Wall Street Journal, but this will be added soon. Also, Excluded were radio talk shows, which I've always heard that radio is extremely conservative. But again, but that was the thing. Where
AM radio.
Exactly.
Like, nobody's listening to AM radio except for conservatives.
Exactly. But that's the other thing, too, is like conservatives who are in radio always try to break into television, and they can't.
Yeah.
That's one of the other things. I mean, that's why the reason why like conservatives have transitioned into podcasting so well is because they came from a radio background, and that's what radio is. It's talking.
Yeah.
It's literally straight talking nonstop, not news where it's like soundbite. Say something really quick. This is what happened. Boom.
Yep.
Then that's on YouTube for like, 30-second clip.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me get back here. Let's see here. CNN Night News are around. Okay. Because these problems, the data collection and the Wall Street Journal will be added to listen radio. Blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is from the Grow Close and Milo study shows that the media are skewed subsequently to the left. Than a typical member of Congress. Thus, if the opinion of the viewers and readers are similar, those are their representatives, the media slant is far to the left of the most of their customers.
Yeah.
So, and this is from 2004.
Yeah.
That's how old this is.
Yeah, this is the type of media environment that got Barack Obama elected. Again, and there's a reason why conservatives transitioned well into podcast and why they've been in AM talk radio. Conservatives, we like to talk and have long-form discussions about policies, prescriptions, and how to fix problems. The left does not do that. The left sells you a pretty package in a short soundbite. That's what they want. They want to sell you this dream in this short little commercial. As where, again, conservatives are going to get down to the nitty-gritty of what the problem is or what the issue is. And they're not going to sugarcoat. They're going to tell you, this is going to be a long-haul fix. This is going to be a long-haul problem, and it's not going to be solved overnight.
Yeah.
This will be decades of, building back up the economy.
Yeah.
But again, people don't want to hear that. They want to hear, I have the solution and the answer, and if you elect me, I'll make sure it happens. That's it.
Which brings me to this next thing right here that I have. This is allsides.com, and it shows the left-wing media bias for each one of these outlets. And I'm just going to point out that they have a bunch of like conservative ones on here now, but guess what? They're brand freaking new. We're talking like when the last 5 to 10 years these outlets just showed up, and they're on here like, oh, see, look, we're even. It's like, yeah, but these only showed up like a few years ago. But here we go right here. ABC, and that's the other thing too. They also have a bunch of things where it says like it's one outlet, and then it says they have an online branch too. So they count that as two separate ones, which I would just count those as one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they have ABC Online, left, Alter News, left, Associated Press, far left, and so is Alternet News or whatever. It says ABC is slightly left. Associated Press, slightly left. Axios, slightly left. It says BBC is centrist, which I don't buy.
No, there's no way.
Bloomberg, left, slightly left. Breitbart is extreme right, but that makes sense. Breitbart, who Breitbart is.
Yeah.
Business Insider, which again, Breitbart's not that freaking new. I mean, Breitbart was like, how long's Breitbart been around? I guess it's been
90s-ish.
90s-ish.
Yeah,
So it's been around.
Remember, he helped Ariana Huffington, and then he created,
That's right.
and then
That's
he created
right.
his.
Then we have Business Insider, slightly left. BuzzFeed, extreme left. CBS, left, slightly left. Christian Moderator, centrist, which, I wouldn't think that would.
Well, I mean, if you look at what's happening within the Protestant church, it makes sense that they're center because they are
with all the gay.
They are
they're
falling off.
Yeah. Then it says CNN Digital, slightly left, which I don't buy.
Yeah.
Daily Beast, far left. Daily Mail, far right. Democracy Now, far left. Forbes, center, but I mean, Forbes is a business thing, so that kind of makes sense. Fox News, right, and then here it is, like she says, Fox Opinion, and then Fox Digital, which I would just
and again,
make those one.
this is how the left skews data. They're like, well, they're two separate entities. Doesn't count. Like, I mean, like when people
still
say
Fox News.
Yeah, when people say Fox, we know what you're talking about. We don't care if it's online or on TV. Same thing.
Here we go. Here, Huffington Post, far left. Mother Jones, far left. MSNBC, far left. National Review, slightly right. Then they have here slightly National Review Opinion, far right. So I would just conclude those two in the same bucket again.
Yeah, just throw them in the same bucket. Don't act like it's two separate entities.
Yeah. Then we have NBC, slightly left. New York Post, slightly right. New York Times, slightly left. New York Times opinion.
And again, this is how you know they're trying to skew the data. Where's New York Post online? Where's New York Post opinion column? Like, they're skewing the data by adding these additional online things to be like, nope, there's just as many conservative outlets as there are left-wing.
Yeah.
It is a cheap tactic in order to
and
skew
they do it again
data.
right here. Look, Newsmax News, and Newsmax Opinion, both are far right, but they have two to make it seem like there's more than one. And then two, Newsmax is pretty brand new. Newsmax only showed up within the last 5-10 years, right?
Yeah. It's a new outlet.
And then we have News Nation, center, Newsweek, center, NPR, slightly left, and they have opinion and that, but I would say they're far left. Politico says slightly left. Reason, center. Routers, center. Slate, far left. American Spectator, far right. The Atlantic, far left. Blaze, far right. The Daily Caller, far right. Daily Wire, far right, which again, that only showed up within the last 10 years.
Yeah.
The Economist, slightly left. Epoch Times or Epic Times, slightly right. Federalist, far right. The Guardian, far left. The Hill says it's centered, which I can assure you that it's not. Like, one of the articles that we pulled up from The Hill was literally sprouting, it had a negative connotation for, like, Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So you can't say that. If you can't be center and be, like, sprouting negative information about the
the
president,
title,
you just say the facts.
The title cannot be a bad title. It's like, evil Trump does this. It's like, okay, yeah, clearly your bias is showing.
The Intercept, far left. The New Yorker, far left. New York Times Magazine, slightly left. USA Today, slightly left. Vox, far left. Wall Street Journal News, center. Wall Street Journal Opinion says it's slightly right, which strange that would be the case.
Yeah.
Washington Examiner, slightly right. Washington Free Beacon, slightly right. New York Post, slightly left. And then Washington Times, slightly right.
And here's again, what metric are they analyzing this data to? It's like, remember, anything like the left pole, you remember the left pole? What we talked about? It's like, it's this mythical place, the left pole, where if anything right of the left pole is the far right. So that's what we're talking about here. I mean, people have a very skewed view of what reality is. And again, this is why it's so hard to have conversations with people of different political persuasions, because their worldview is so warped by the misinformation or disinformation they get, or we're not even getting the same information. We're in two different worlds. We're getting two very different opinions. Or, again, like what this lady said, the truth doesn't matter. So we're getting two different narratives.
Accidentally caught.
So that's what's scary, man. That's why it's so hard and basically impossible to have conversations with people.
Yeah, pretty much, man. But that's really bad. I just had to show that, like I said, when we got into the argument with those dudes online about, hey, the media is completely biased towards the left, and it has been, since the 90s.
Yeah, now I know what you're talking about.
This is what we're talking about. It's like I said, the media has been on the left.
The media is
for
on
years.
like that guy that was right. The media is obviously right now because Elon Musk has Twitter. It's like, dude, we're talking about the grand scheme of history.
This just happened. You can't. We're talking about the grand scheme of the news media has been far left probably since the freaking 60s.
But again, this is what we're talking about. When you get special treatment, when the media has been treated with kid gloves, like, oh, we're all partisan, and now we're being like, Elon Musk with Twitter's been able to show, no, none of you are partisan. And now all these studies are coming out showing that you're all partisan hacks. And they go, when you're given special treatment and then all of a sudden you're treated the same as everyone else, it feels like oppression. When you're given special treatment and then you lose that special treatment and you get treated like everyone else, it feels like oppression.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, that's what's happening right now. The left is getting their dose of reality, and it feels like they're being, help, I'm being oppressed.
Yeah, but it's just like, they're pointing at news again. It's like I just showed right there. It's like we're pointing at news outlets that haven't been around for 10 years yet, or barely 10 years, and they're like, "Look, see, it's fair and balanced." Like, no, it's not. These guys just showed up because they were sick and tired of the left-wing narratives being spun on every single news outlet.
Yeah,
and now the left is like, "I can't believe how much disinformation is being put out." You guys are the kings of disinformation, and it's like you said. It's like, the stories that they chose to ignore are just as important as the stories that they choose to put out to hit a narrative.
The stories they chose to put out. I mean, the Epstein files were put out were hidden for years because somebody had. I'm guessing maybe he had dirt on somebody up in MSNBC and CNN. But I mean, I remember watching that video of that anchor, that news chick, going, "I had the files and I was going to report them on that night show," and then somebody at the top said, "Nope, we're not going to do that." And she was just sitting there bummed out. I could have been the journalist that exposed that story. And there you go. She just towed the line. She towed the company line. It's like, sorry, you can't do that. It's like, imagine if she had the balls just like, you know what, we're going to talk about this anyway. You know, but no, they don't, because they're too. This is what happens when you get too comfortable at your job. It's like, oh, I don't care. I want the paycheck. I don't care about being daring and risking my career for something.
It's the same thing. What I think's going on with the Daily Wire right now. They're too afraid to be. Once you get to a certain point where you're so big and popular, you get to the point where you're too afraid to take risks anymore because you don't want to offend half your viewers or whatever. And you know, that's part of it. It's like, hey. That's probably what the call was. You know, if you want to look at it at the giving them the best terms, like they're just like, this isn't that big of a story. No one's going to care about some guy that, you know, trafficked a bunch of, you know,
underage girl
in an island. Yeah, it's like, who cares, you know? But in the other word, you know, if you give it the worst possible case scenario, it's like it's somebody who was in on it, who was probably worked at CNN that knew about it, and you know, maybe visited the island.
Yep.
That's the two extremes, and odds are maybe it's more somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the middle for sure. But again, we can't even we can't even entertain the middle because, like I said, we're getting bombarded with one narrative on one side, one narrative on the other side, and again, one side's I'll show my bias here. One side is based on truth and reality, and the other side is based off media lies and misrepresentations of the truth. Mm-hmm. So again, that's you on the left. If you're on the left, your worldview is based on lies, and if you're on the right, your worldview is based on the truth. And we've been bombarded by left-wing ideology and left-wing narratives our entire lives.
Yeah. It's like what Tim Pool talks on the Timcast. Like I said, he brings on like a left-wing personality on his culture war, or not his culture war, his is it the culture war?
Yeah, the culture war.
Yeah, the culture war show, and they get absolutely ragdolled.
Yeah,
they look ridiculous, just like in this last kid that was on there. I mean, the last three people that I've seen go on his little thing where he brings on a right-wing guy to talk and a left-wing guy to talk about whatever topic it is. And the last one, it was about Trump's deporting people that have visas, and just like they'll ask somebody a question. And then, like, okay, then if you apply that same standard, how come you don't apply that same standard to, like, the January Sixers? And they're just like, oh, they have no answer. It's like they have to go in their head and make up some different type of strategy to, like, come up with it. And, like, they look ridiculous. There's a reason why the left doesn't want to debate people on these long-form content. There's a reason Kamala Harris did not go on Joe Rogan.
Yes.
That's the reason. It's like, he's going to ask her a question. So what's all this thing about, you know, like you were the border czar, or, you know, why did you say you smoked weed on this one podcast, but you arrest black men in California for smoking weed and giving them longer sentences?
Again, another one would be like, why are you okay with men and women's sports? I mean, they're fracturing women's skulls because
there are like 5 different topics that Joe Rogan could have just hammered her on. That they're like, if you go on there, you're going to look retarded.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the left doesn't have it kind of goes back to Joe Rogan problem. The left doesn't have a Joe Rogan because, again, the left doesn't want to sell you their long form content. They can't sell you their long form content because if they really dissect their ideas and they have it in a long form conversation about them, their ideas will falter and die because especially if somebody doesn't believe. Like, they can only go on shows where people believe the narrative that they believe. Mm-hmm. If they go on someone who's going to ask them, like, a question about their ideology, they'll be like, what about this? And they're like, don't question the narrative. Don't question, because they don't have an answer.
Well, the problem is the left does have a Joe Rogan. It's Hassan Piker, and he is a crappy Joe Rogan. And he is a Hamas sympathizer, terrorist supporting person. Yeah. And they're all slowly starting to realize this, which is why that they won't promote him. Yeah. The left and the Democratic Party won't promote him for those reasons, but the left still claims him.
Yeah. Again, he interviewed a terrorist on his show, the Houthi pirate,
and celebrated him for it.
He's like, "You're like Luffy from One Piece. Like you're a really cool anime protagonist." And it's like, dude, he's a murderer. He's a killer. He's a thief.
He has had people. They had people who were hostages while he was interviewing this kid. Like, his actual group had hostages at that time.
Yeah. So again, the left, your worldview is based on lies, and the right, our worldview is based on truth. That maybe sound arrogant, but again, look at what's going on. Look at how we opened this video. That woman said the truth doesn't matter.
Yeah, the truth is getting in the way of us doing things or solving problems. Like,
that's
how
horrifying. Horrifying. And she runs NPR and she ran Wikipedia. That's horrifying.
Yeah.
The truth doesn't matter, folks.
Yeah, and you can go look at, I mean, there are so many videos. If you just type in Wikipedia bias on YouTube, hundreds of videos pop up. Like Steven Crowder's one where he completely breaks it down. An hour-long video. And like there are several others that I watched. Like, we'd be here all day if we were watching
all these. But I mean, again, the problem is people on the left are not going to watch those videos. They're not going to see that breakdown because the truth doesn't matter to them. The narrative does. Their worldview does. Bringing paradise here on earth does. So that's where we're at with that. So I think that's about all we've got for you today here. This is the Twins with Owasso Live. This was the Morning Loop. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you too can stay in the loop. That's all we've got for you today. God bless you.
See you later, everybody.
They sent an influencer proposal to a Trump supporter, and now we got it.
About a week ago, I received this email. What they were asking for is $1,500 for anti-Trump content on TikTok. So they basically sent me this kind of like creator brief with all the asks that they have and everything, and like do's and don'ts, like don't show any form of support for Donald Trump and his allies, gloat about Harris and her allies, attack Trump supporters for their intellectual or personal values. This is actually a campaign with Future Forward.
Whoops. This is the campaign claiming that they have all the authenticity, but they're paying people to say nice things about them and bad things about Donald Trump. And sometimes not even with a disclosure that they're being paid. And it's not just him. Others are coming forward, too.
Sunny, who met us in Houston, was one of a few dozen influencers invited to the White House to watch the State of the Union and meet President Biden.
He said to us, the collective presence in this room has more viewership on Gen Z than all of traditional media combined.
Now, Democratic organizations are flooding the creator community with cash and providing behind-the-scenes access.
Come with me to meet the President of the United States.
The Harris campaign does not pay influencers directly. CBS News found a constellation of other Democratic political organizations that do.
In addition to paying them, accidentally caught, they sent an influencer proposal to a Trump supporter, and now we got it.